A federal task force has been formed to investigate possible fraud and corruption involving homelessness funds across Southern California.
Well, I think the most troubling finding of the audit was not just that we don't know how effective these programs are working, but that we haven't even been tracking where the dollars are going at all.
$2.3 billion sent to LA County over 4 years is completely unaccounted for. That's $2.3 billion that could have been used to clean up this.
For residents of Los Angeles, the site has become undeniable. It is one of the top issues facing the city, a visual crisis that has spread from the decaying inner city to the very suburbs that power the region's economy. We are talking about the massive surge of recreational vehicles, or RVs, that have effectively privatized public streets, turning neighborhoods in East Hollywood, Venice, and the San Fernando Valley into permanent, unregulated encampments. But now, after years of inaction and excuses, the city is enacting a new, aggressive plan to remove them. The tow trucks are rolling out, and the enforcement teams are moving in. Aerial footage from local news choppers confirms the scale of the operation. In East Hollywood, near Oakwood and Virgil, south of the 101 freeway, lines of dilapidated vehicles are being tagged and towed. In Venice, along Washington Boulevard, businesses that have been blocked for months are finally seeing the curbs cleared. This crackdown is largely being driven by City Councilwoman Tracy Park, who has led the effort to get these RVs off the street, arguing that the city of Los Angeles is not an RV park. On the surface, it looks like a restoration of order. It looks like the city is finally listening to the frustration of its taxpayers who have watched their neighborhoods deteriorate. But investigative journalists and federal auditors are warning that this sudden cleanup might just be a cosmetic cover for a much darker reality. The question that is scratching the heads of sanctuary residents isn't just about where these RVs are going, it is about where the money went. For years, billions of dollars, billions with a B, have been poured into the nonprofit sector to solve this exact problem. Yet, as the funding increased, the encampments only surged. It is a paradox that defies economic logic, unless you understand that the goal may never have been to solve the crisis at all. We are looking at a system where the homeless industrial complex has potentially realized that its access to America's piggy bank is about to be cut off. The sudden urgency to move these vehicles comes at a time when federal scrutiny is reaching an all-time high. A new independent audit has revealed a staggering figure that should alarm every single person who pays taxes in California. $2.4 billion sent to Los Angeles County over 4 years is completely unaccounted for.
A luxury RV lot overrun by squatters, trash piling up, trailers burning, and safety concerns growing. But why do some say they had no choice but to move in?
Fox 11's Haley Winslow is in the City of Industry.
Vanishing into a maze of nonprofits and developers without a single audit trail to prove where it went. That is $2.4 billion that could have been used to build legitimate housing. It could have been used to provide mental health services for the people living in squalor inside these RVs. It could have been used to clean up the streets so that families in million-dollar homes aren't afraid to walk their dogs. Instead, investigators believe it went into a black hole of bureaucracy and, in some cases, outright criminal theft. The timing of these RV removals is suspicious to many observers. Why now? Why, after letting the problem fester and grow for 4 years, is there a sudden mobilization to sweep it under the rug? The source material suggests that this is a reaction to a looming exposure. The socialist takeover of local governance, as critics call it, relies on visual aids of mass poverty to justify higher taxes and more government control. But when the money is stolen instead of spent on the poor, that narrative collapses. What we are seeing is a potential cover-up of Minnesota levels of fraud right here in California. For those who don't recall, the Minnesota fraud scandal involved hundreds of millions of dollars meant for feeding children during the pandemic that was instead siphoned off to buy luxury cars and real estate. Now, federal prosecutors are finding the exact same blueprint in the Golden State. United States Attorney Bill Asalee has been vocal about this, stating that there are a lot more indictments to come. The investigation has already uncovered schemes where criminal developers received government grants to build homes for the homeless but never laid a single brick. These weren't just clerical errors or bad investments.
So, Mr. U.S. Attorney, first, what action has the federal government taken so far on this proposal?
Well, we've taken no action other than directing our agencies that the state of California has no jurisdiction over federal agencies or regulating federal agents.
These were calculated schemes to rob the taxpayer while using the most vulnerable population as a human shield. The irony is tragic. The very people who claim to champion the poor, the nonprofits, and the progressive city councils are presiding over a system that enables homelessness rather than solving it. By decriminalizing minor offenses through measures like Proposition 47 and flooding the zone with unaccountable cash, they have created a revolving door system. They target enforcement just enough to raise statistics, claiming they have helped thousands off the street, but they conveniently ignore the statistics of how many end up right back where they started because the treatment programs were nothing more than bus rides to nowhere. As the RVs are hauled away to impound lots, the real debris is left behind in the ledgers of the city comptroller. Residents are starting to realize that the dire situation in their neighborhoods wasn't caused by a lack of compassion or a lack of funds. It was caused by a deliberate and profitable ineptitude. And now, as the federal investigators close in, the rush to hide the evidence is on. But if you think the missing $2 billion is the worst part of this story, you need to see what the investigators found in the personal accounts of the people running these charities. We aren't just talking about wasted money. We are talking about a lifestyle of luxury funded by the suffering of the streets.
All right, in other news now, as a new mayor begins to take on one of San Francisco's oldest challenges, there is a new report measuring the city's progress. So the good news is that thousands of people are being helped out of homelessness.
When we talk about government waste, we usually picture bureaucracy or inefficiency, someone losing a file, or overpaying for a hammer. But what federal investigators are uncovering in California is not accidental mismanagement. It is alleged to be deliberate, calculated theft on a scale that is difficult to comprehend. The source material details a specific indictment that serves as the perfect example of how the homeless industrial complex actually operates behind closed doors. According to United States Attorney Bill S.A. Lee, who has been leading the charge on these investigations, the fraud is brazen. In one particularly shocking case, an individual named Alexander Sufer, the executive director of a charity called Abundant Blessings, allegedly received government funds specifically to build homes for the homeless. He did absolutely nothing of the sort. Instead of pouring concrete or framing walls, investigators allege that this money was diverted to fund a lavish personal lifestyle. We are talking about taxpayer dollars, money meant to help the most destitute people in our society, being spent on tickets to the Coachella Music Festival, high-end jewelry, and, perhaps most egregiously, a $7 million mansion in Beverly Hills. If you want to know where the money really goes in these government programs, make sure you are subscribed to this channel. We follow the paper trail that the mainstream news often ignores. Think about that for a moment. A program designed to get people off the streets was allegedly used to buy a luxury home for the very person running the charity. It is the ultimate betrayal of the public trust.
We begin with one of the most bizarre homeless encampments we've ever seen. Dozens of people have broken into and moved into the storage yard full of brand new luxury RVs.
And sadly, this does not appear to be an isolated incident. The source material draws a direct parallel to the massive fraud scandals we saw in Minnesota, where hundreds of millions of dollars meant for feeding children were siphoned off to buy luxury cars and real estate. Now, prosecutors are finding that exact same blueprint in California. The mechanisms are frighteningly simple. A criminal developer or a politically connected nonprofit approaches the government with a plan to solve a crisis. They ask for millions of dollars to build affordable housing or provide mental health services. Because there is an existential threat to the way of life in these cities, the money is approved with almost zero oversight. United States Attorney S.A. Lee notes that for years, there were practically no audits. No one was checking to see if the homes were actually built. No one was verifying if the meals were served. The money just went out the door, and the results were assumed. One specific detail that highlights the pettiness of this theft involves the payment of an individual's American Express bill. The audit found that grant money was used to pay off personal credit card debt that had nothing to do with helping the homeless. This lack of accountability created a gold rush for scammers. As long as the homeless population remained visible, providing what critics call visual aids of mass poverty, the funding kept flowing. But the scam goes deeper than just stealing the cash. It also involves what the source describes as a revolving door system of treatment. We are seeing reports of individuals being placed in so-called treatment programs that do little more than bus them around to various facilities until the daily government stipend runs out.
It's a crackdown on people living in RVs parked along El Camino Real near Stanford. KPI X5's Devin Feely live in Palo Alto with the people who say they're tired of getting chased off. Devin?
Once the money for that individual dries up, they are simply dumped back onto the street, often in the exact same condition or worse than when they started. This cycle serves two purposes for the corrupt elements within the system. First, it generates a statistic. The city can claim they helped a person off the street, technically boosting their success numbers. Second, by returning that person to the street, they ensure that the visible crisis remains, justifying the need for next year's budget increase. It is a self-perpetuating machine where every person living on the sidewalk represents a revenue stream for a politically connected nonprofit. The source material uses a very strong term for this: a socialist takeover. It argues that this level of fraud is only possible because of a lack of political checks and balances. In a state with a supermajority controlled by one party, there is very little incentive to ask hard questions about where the billions are going, especially when the people receiving the money are often part of the same political ecosystem that approves the grants. It raises a disturbing question about the sanctuary policies that have defined these regions for the last decade. Residents are scratching their heads wondering why their neighborhoods are being overrun by encampments despite paying some of the highest taxes in the nation. The answer, it seems, is that the chaos is profitable. The homeless industrial complex doesn't have compassion in its business model. It has a bottom line. And now, as the RVs are being towed away and the encampments are being cleared in a panic, we have to ask, is this a genuine attempt to fix the problem, or is it an attempt to destroy the evidence? With federal investigators now circling and 2 indictments already unsealed, the scramble is on. The tragedy here is not just the stolen money, it is the stolen potential.
Out of their vehicles and into permanent housing. The city's new unit hold program offers landlords 1 month's rent.
Every dollar spent on a Beverly Hills mansion for a fraudster is a dollar that didn't go to a bed for a veteran, a meal for a child, or a mental health counselor for someone in crisis. The compassionate thing to do, as the source argues, would be to audit every single penny and prosecute every single thief. But as we move into the final part of this report, we need to look at the future. Because if this fraud is happening in California and Minnesota, where else is it happening? And what happens when the American taxpayer finally decides they have had enough? The implications of this scandal extend far beyond the city limits of Los Angeles or the state lines of California. What we are witnessing is the blueprint for a nationwide fraud industrial complex. The source material explicitly warns that if this level of theft is happening in California and Minnesota, it is almost certainly happening in places like New York, Maine, and Illinois. We are talking about a systemic vulnerability in how the American government operates. The new gold rush in this country isn't in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street. It is in the grant offices of state and local governments. The model is frighteningly simple. Identify a crisis, whether it's homelessness, hunger, or addiction. Create a shell company that claims to have a solution, and then apply for millions of dollars in taxpayer funding. Because the political pressure to do something is so high, the money is often handed out with zero vetting. In Minnesota, we saw brand new companies pop up out of thin air, claiming they were going to feed thousands of children a day. They got the money, and no one checked to see if they even had a kitchen.
In Los Angeles, a place to park is fast becoming a place to start over for thousands of people there living in RVs.
In California, we are seeing developers claim they will build housing only to spend the funds on luxury items. The common thread here is a total lack of oversight. The failure of the government to protect its citizens has led to a surreal situation in San Francisco, specifically in the South of Market neighborhood. The source material highlights that for the last 12 months, residents there have had to take matters into their own hands. They have established a direct line to a team of private security guards, paying out of their own pockets for protection that their taxes were supposed to provide. We are talking about over $800,000 spent by ordinary citizens just to feel safe walking down their own sidewalks. This is the ultimate indictment of the sanctuary model. You pay taxes for services you don't receive, and then you pay again for private security just to survive the chaos those taxes helped create. The source material makes a pointed political argument about why this is allowed to happen. It suggests that in states dominated by a socialist supermajority, where one party controls the legislature, the governor's mansion, and the city councils, there are no checks and balances. When a budget of $24 billion is passed to solve homelessness, it feels good. It sounds compassionate. But because there is no opposition party with the power to demand an audit, the money simply vanishes into the pockets of the politically connected. This creates a perverse incentive structure. The more people living on the streets, the more visual aids these politicians have to justify higher taxes and bigger budgets. And the bigger the budget, the more money there is to be stolen by the nonprofits that support them.
Now, the head federal prosecutor for Southern California has been one of the public faces of immigration enforcement. Bill Esali is reacting today to a court ruling that found he is unlawfully holding that job.
It is a closed loop of corruption that feeds on human misery. United States Attorney Bill Esali's task force is trying to break that loop. By following the money, they are exposing that the compassion of the homeless industrial complex is a lie. But the damage is already done. The trust between the taxpayer and the government has been shattered. If we don't stop this, the source warns that we will end up with a poverty-stricken nation where the hardworking middle class is robbed blind to enrich a new class of government-dependent elites. The American dream is being replaced by the government scheme. This brings us to the future. As investigations ramp up, we can expect to see more indictments, more exposed scams, and likely more resistance from the political establishment that benefited from this lack of oversight. The RVs being towed in Los Angeles are just the first visible sign of a system under pressure, but cleaning up the streets is the easy part. Cleaning up the ledgers, reclaiming the stolen billions, and dismantling the fraud industrial complex will be the real battle. We need to demand accountability. We need to demand that every single dollar spent on homelessness is tracked, audited, and tied to results. If a nonprofit takes millions and homelessness goes up, they shouldn't get a raise. They should get an investigation. The residents of San Francisco hiring their own security proved that the people are ready to move on from failed government promises. Now, the rest of the country is waking up to the bill. But what do you think? Is this fraud just a few bad apples, or is the entire system designed to fail? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay ahead of the news cycle with confirmed facts, make sure you are subscribed. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next investigation.